welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to another of the 12 Days of Christmas videos. We're now about halfway, if not halfway, through the 12 Days of Christmas, and I wanted to share with you my very first TBR of 2026. You've probably seen my goal video, so you'll know that I am definitely trying to scale back in like scheduled buddy reads and all of those kinds of things. So as a result, my list here is a little bit on the short side, but that's good. That's exactly how I want it to be. I am participating in a readathon during the month of January, so there are a couple of books on here that I am potentially doing for that, but I do reserve the right to change my mind if I get to that point and decide I want to do something different. That readathon is, of course, the We Love Jenny readathon that Christy Lewis and I put on every year in memory of our dear friend Jennifer Brooks, who passed away a couple of years ago. We love to take this opportunity to be able to remember her and honor her memory by reading books that remind us of her or books that she recommended highly. I'll link my announcement video here so you can go ahead and see the details, because we do have one live show plus some things going on my Discord, so you can go check out all of the details there. But I do have two books that I am planning to potentially read for We Love Jenny. Again, I might change my mind. We'll kind of see how my mood strikes me, because I know Jenny would totally approve of that, because she certainly was a mood reader and also a heavy DNFer, so she would support me choosing what I feel like reading. But right now, my plans are Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher, which I believe is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but T. Kingfisher puts horror twists on things, and I am not a horror girly. I'm just not. But T. Kingfisher's brand of horror, I totally vibe with. So I would love to read this, because I'm going to try to do a reading vlog for like a week-long reading vlog for We Love Jenny. So I want to choose books that I could potentially finish within that week. So this is on the shorter end, so I think that's a possibility. The other one I would likely get on audiobook, and that's Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This is the third in the Emily Wilde series, and I read the first two in 2025. Jenny only read, I think, the first one before she passed away, but she really liked it because it is kind of more of a cozy fantasy, but in the same respect, it does have elements of darkness to it, because it's definitely kind of like a dark fae story. And we follow Emily Wilde, who is someone who is researching and studying fairies in England. And she's definitely in a field and profession. She is actually like working for a university, and it's not a job that is common or popular for a woman to have. It's definitely more on the taboo end. That element of it actually reminds me of the memoirs of Lady Trent, but where Lady Trent doesn't really have as much of a magical feel, it feels more scientific and it feels more political. I think Emily Wilde definitely has more of that magic to it. I really, really loved book one. I thought book two was fine. I didn't like it as much as book one, but I did still really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to hopefully completing the trilogy by reading book three. I also have some buddy reads and book club picks that I have happening in the month of January. So for my Patreon book club, we are going to be reading Gaskell's Sylvia's Lovers. This actually will be split over 2 months, because in my Patreon, we choose a classic. We usually read 2 months on, 1 month off, and I usually try to choose shorter classics, so that way we're able to squeeze them in better, because I know that, you know, everyone reads at their own pace, and some of us have very busy schedules and might not be able to squeeze in a 500-page book in 1 month. I know there are lots of times that I can't do that. So I always try to choose books that are around the 300 mark or under. Sylvia's Lovers is longer, so we decided what we would do is that we would read a larger book over the month of January and February. So I will be reading half of this in January to about this mark, which is about 230 pages. And then we'll read the second half in February. We'll have a halfway live Zoom discussion, and then a Zoom discussion at the end to chat about the second half of the book and final thoughts. So I'm really looking forward to the ability to reading a longer book with all of my Patreon buddies, because there are a lot of longer books that I know that we would really enjoy to read together, but if we're trying to squeeze it into 1 month, that's just too difficult. So really looking forward to kind of doing a different format and being able to read this. For my in-person book club, we will be reading a book that has been sitting on my shelf for, no joke, years. Probably at least 2 years, maybe 3. So I'm really excited because it gives me the opportunity to read a book that's been sitting on my shelf, which is one of my goals for the year, as you might know. So we will be reading The Snow Child. I'm really looking forward to reading this. I actually didn't realize that it was a Pulitzer Prize finalist until I was doing this TBR. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is kind of like a retelling of A Snow Child fairy tale, but I'll read a little blurb on the back for you. Alaska 1920, a brutal place to homestead and especially tough for recent arrivals Jack and Mabel. Childless, they're drifting apart, he struggling to maintain the farm, she crumbling from loneliness and despair. In a moment of levity during the season's first snowfall, they build a child out of the snow. The next morning, the snow child is gone, but they glimpse a young child running through the trees. The little girl, who calls herself Fana, seems to be a child of the woods. She hunts with a red fox at her side and somehow survives alone in the Alaskan wilderness. As Jack and Mabel come to understand this child who could have stepped from the pages of a fairy tale, they begin to love her as their own daughter. So I don't think that this is necessarily going to be like happy ending kind of a fairy tale. It sounds like it's definitely got a darker turn to it, but I've always loved the cover. I think the cover's so lovely, and it's been one that I've been really interested to read in a long time, and it feels perfectly seasonal to read in January. Speaking of perfectly seasonal in January, my classic for the month is this collection of Chekhov short stories. I have never read any Chekhov before. I'm really excited to read this. I feel like the cover is so beautiful, so wintry, and Russian literature screams winter to me, probably because a lot of the stories are set in the wintertime or in Siberia or in a really cold area. And so that just feels totally perfect. In my Classics TBR, I did share with you the titles of the books in this collection, or the short stories in this collection, but I'm going to share them again here just in case you missed that and you want to know what's in here. We have Overseasoned, The Night Before Easter, At Home, Champagne, The Malefactor, Murder Will Out, The Trousseau, The Decoration, The Man in a Case, Little Jack, Dreams, The Death of an Official, Agatha, The Beggar, Children, The Troublesome Guest, Not Wanted, The Robbers, Lean and Fat, On the Way, The Head Gardener's Tale, Hush, without a title, and In the Ravine. So with all the short stories in here, some of them are just like 2 pages long, some of them are 15 pages long, but overall they're on the shorter end, and I'm really looking forward to picking this up in the month of January. I will be reading ahead for my February book for my American literature class that I am teaching at our homeschool group to high schoolers. In February, we will be reading To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and I'm very excited to be teaching this and also to be rereading it because it has been probably a solid decade, maybe even more, since I've read To Kill a Mockingbird myself. So I'm really looking forward to rereading this in January and preparing to teach it in February. It is like on the longer end. It's not like it's a super long book, but we have been reading really, really short works so far. And I try to keep it that way because I assign for them to read something over the course of a month, and then they have an essay due, like, that they write about that. So it's like 1 essay a month, 1 book a month. Sometimes we've done like several short stories like we did with Poe or Washington Irving, but overall I try to keep it briefer so it's easier for them to squeeze that in. But this is 323 pages, so it's certainly the longest of the books that we'll read this year. And then lastly, I do have one buddy read that I am reading in the month of January, I think, and that would be Rainbow Valley by Ellen Montgomery. This will be part of the Anne series, which I've been reading with my friend Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads. We intended to read 1 a month in the year of 2025 and get through the entirety of the series. Did we do that? No, we did not, but that's okay. We made it through 6 of the 8 books, and it was really nice though, because it wasn't like we felt pressured or like we had to complete the books in a certain amount of time. Sometimes I would finish the book before she would, sometimes she'd finish it before me, and we'd just leave our thoughts as we were going, and it was just really nice, really chill, and they're just such comforting books. So Rainbow Valley, to the best of my understanding, is actually about Anne's children, far more than it's about her. And we kind of started that transition in Anne of Ingleside, where it felt like half of the books were anecdotes about her children and half of the books were her as a mother and a wife and all of those kinds of things. So I'm pretty sure Rainbow Valley is like the full transition into it just being these stories about her children and other children living in this area. And then the final book, book 8, Rilla of Ingleside, is following Anne's daughter, Rilla, while she's like a teenager / young adult. So I know that this is kind of that transitional book, but something that I loved about Anne of Ingleside is that we got a lot of childhood like hijinks again, and we hadn't really gotten very many of those. I think Anne of Avonlea was the last one where we had a lot of those, and so it was kind of nice to have that again. So I'm looking forward to Rainbow Valley because I think it's going to be a lot of childhood hijinks that will be reminiscent of Anne when she was young and Davy and Dora when they were young. So I think it's going to be really fun. Well, that is my TBR for the month of January. I'm really looking forward to getting to these books, but it's not a ton. So maybe I'll have some time to pick up some mood reading as well, but we'll just kind of see how it goes. The month might be busier than I anticipate, and this might be all that I get to, and that's totally fine as well. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. What are your reading plans for January? Do you read seasonally? Do you like to read chilly, wintry books in January, or do you just, you know, read whatever? Do you have other plans? I would love to hear if there's any read-alongs or readathons that you're participating in and what you're most excited to read in the month of January. And if you've read any of the books that I'm planning to read in January, feel free to leave your thoughts on those in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me and also more of the 12 Days of Christmas, and I will see you again tomorrow.